All right, you guys, here we go. Paul from PB Sports Talk here with you. Boy, this is interesting. I've never done anything like this in my life. Never, ever, ever. I don't even like to do stuff like this. I don't like beefs with people. I don't like to go on and air laundry or anything like this. What I'm about to talk about in terms of the Jason Whitlock unmasking is in large part twofold. There's two reasons for it. One, unbelievable amounts of people have reached out to me since everything went down and said, "Where are you? What's going on? Are you coming back? I miss you on the show." They come join me on my show. They send me comments and messages. And so this all kind of went down 2 months ago before Christmas. I kind of let it go. I let it go. People kept on asking. I gave this some thought. Should I say anything? Should I not say anything? I counseled with some people. Is this something I really want to do? If I do it, how do I go about doing it? I'm a really, he doesn't think I am, but I'm a real well thought out guy. And I have experience second to none in a lot of different areas, and many that he has zero in. So I understand how to go about things, and I understand the context of what I'm about to say and the ramifications it may have. The reason I'm doing it is to address for those people what really took place. And secondarily, because I do a lot of mentoring and I do a lot of advisory services for young people, middle-aged people, business, people in sports, coaches, and such. And I believe that this is a great example of a real life experience that happened to me. And it's a teaching tool, a teaching moment that I can use to teach other people on exactly what never to be and exactly how never to treat people. So I'm going to use my real life experience and what happened to me over a very short period of time, let's say 3-4 weeks, and illustrate that, highlight that, accentuate that, and teach all around that of a major name in the sports industry for some 30 whatever years, and former, obviously, writer for the Kansas City Star, then ESPN, Fox, all of those things. And now he has the Fearless podcast. And I think by the time you get done listening to me, you might realize that the name Fearless, there's actually a ton of fear in it. And I think that that's how this person is built. By knocking down enough other people, by dividing enough people instead of multiplying people somehow, some way, there's satisfaction for him gained that way, and it helps prop him up. So let me denigrate everybody else. I'll feel better about it. Hopefully people will watch me and they'll think highly of me for it. When the real truth is, it maybe appeals to about 5 to 10% of society. In the grand scheme of things, it's a very small podcast show with experience and background like that. Let me just say this. Let me get this right out, and then I'm going to get into some of the guts of this. Jason Whitlock was an absolute stud when it came to his writing work for the Kansas City Star. That was his lane. That was his specialty. That's what he excelled at. When he decided to go a different route, that's when things began to unravel, in my opinion. This is my opinion. I'm going to give you 3 sets of things. I'm going to give you facts. I'm going to give you opinion. And then I'm going to give you essentially guesstimation of what I think further is really going on beyond the experience that I had. So I think his lane was writing. Man, could he do it? Just absolutely phenomenal, terrific. Then when I really started following him was his first initial appearances on television. I thought, wow, I like this perspective. I like this angle. I could dig this. And I enjoyed watching him when he was a guest, on some different shows. And then something went terribly wrong, in my opinion. You might say, well, what the heck did you go on a show for? I'll explain that. I'll get to that and the reasons how that all came about, why it happened, why I decided to go forward, how it all went down, and had it not gone down that way, how I would have exited out and the reasons why. So Jason got into all this race stuff and this culture bias and race DEI and all this type of stuff. I don't participate in any of that stuff. I don't like the race topic, not because it doesn't exist, but because it's divisive, and the way he uses it is divisive, in my opinion. And most times people that do that, typically they want you to come join them. I don't want to come join that crowd. That's not for me. I was taught and brought up against everything about that type of thing. You know, one last thing before I get into the guts of this, because this could go on a million different ways. I have very few notes in front of me. I'm going to wing this because I want all of you to see the authenticity of here. This isn't scripted, folks. That's not life. Okay. I'm showing you my authentic self. I'm going to tell you things that you didn't even know about me. And I'm going to go a little bit Eminem on Jason in a moment because he's going to want to respond in some kind of way. He has no response. And I'll explain the reasons why. So when Jason kind of went sideways, I lost touch. I never watched his stuff. I didn't even know what happened to him. When I started getting on X about a year ago, I came across his name and I followed him. As things went on, I saw that he discussed a lot about Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders. Those of you who don't know, and I'll show you the clip in a moment, I made what is now a pretty, in hindsight, a pretty amazing prediction. January 19, 2025, I said that Shedeur Sanders would be a 5th-round draft pick. And I was tagging Jason, and Jason saw it, and he reached out to me, and kind of the rest is history. All right, so there's a number of topics I'm going to go through here. Let me first start by saying I saw problems very, very, very early on in the way that this guy acts and the way he conducts himself. I believe he's a master manipulator. I believe he's a bully. And I believe he has to knock you down, again, like I said, to pick himself up. And he needs to show you that he's dominant and he's in control. He'll say anything. Literally, I think this guy will say anything. When I was explaining to him that I was born and raised in Detroit, first 19 years of my life, lived in Michigan for 53 years, you know what he said to me? He said, "You sound like you're from Detroit." What in the world would that mean? He didn't say it sounds like you're from the Midwest. He didn't say it sounds like you're from Michigan. He said it sounds like you're from Detroit. Now, what could that mean? I'll let you and your imagination run with that. What I get about 95% of the time is you sound like you're an Italian, or you sound like you're a Dago. I occasionally get you sound like you're from New York. Well, my mom was 100% Italian. My mom had, including her, 12 brothers and sisters, right? I grew up 29 first cousins. You might not know it in my last name, but my father was half Italian. My mother, 100% Italian. So a lot of people will say, you sound Italian. So I understand where he was going. So since you mentioned it, Jason, let me tell you a little bit of something about Detroit that I have in me. You know the story about Eminem? You know the story about 8 Mile? You know the famous movie that he made? You know that great piece in the movie where he battles and he tells the whole world and he tells the guy he's battling all the negative stuff about him, so that guy had nothing to say? Well, I know you, and I know how you're built, and I know how you will respond, so let me go Eminem on you, all right? I am new at this. I am not a longtime podcaster. I was putting, prior to meeting you, about 5 hours a week into what it was that I was doing. I come from the entrepreneur world, and it wasn't this. This is something relatively new for me over the last year and a half. I am currently struggling in life in terms of losing a massive business, okay? Closing and exiting out of a massive business, losing $500,000 in money there at the end to try to keep it afloat. My family's life savings. I am doing DoorDash to make some ends meet. I am hustling in some other areas to make ends meet. I am trying to build a show from the ground up. I am using 35 years of entrepreneurial experience to try to make something out of it. I did, after we started talking on the phone, I did ask you and inquire if there could be something potentially full-time. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, and I would have exited out of it really quick, but I did do those things. I did make mistakes on your show. I am flawed. I have a lot of things that I understand and that I know, but I make mistakes just like everybody else. I had my first business at 13 and a half. I spoke to the first group of people, 800 people I spoke to in front of a gym assembly at 11 years old. I've been speaking to people my entire life, very large groups. I've put deals together in the millions, okay? I've employed hundreds and hundreds of people. I've built 2 companies from zero to the millions. All right, buddy? I've spoken my whole life. I know exactly how to speak. The podcast context or the way that you go about in terms of a structured show was different for me, and I'm adjusting to it. So I don't claim to be perfect. And I'll get into the actual mistakes that I made, folks, that this guy went apeshit crazy. He had a chance to mentor me. Instead, he mimicked me, he mocked me, he discarded me, he embarrassed me on the show and off the show. If he would do something like that to somebody he just met, what must this guy do to people that he's known for a while? And you see, over the last 2 months, I've done a lot of due diligence. You see, I can access information because I know how to talk to people and I know how to inquire and get what I need to help me go forward. And I'm talking legally, I'm talking fully aboard up front. You see, it appears that my experience with Jason Whitlock is extremely common. There are a lot of other people who have had similar experiences and or have similar feelings about the way that they were treated. So this is not new. And I kind of knew that early. I could see the pattern developing in terms of the way he was acting. And then when I spoke to him on TV, on the phone, excuse me, I guess, and on TV too, on a stream, it was really concerning. And so had it not ended the way that it did, I would have exited out 100% on my mother and father's grave, because the standards by which I live, he does not represent, nor does the guy TJ Moe. Let me just bring up TJ Moe here for a second. TJ Moe is a regular contributor. I think I spent one segment with him. TJ Moe is a franchise holder. I think multiple franchises, multiple different type of franchises. I could be wrong on that, but I believe Smoothie King is one of them. And about 5-6 weeks ago, when the whole Sharon Moore thing went down with Michigan, TJ Moe made a post and said something, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the exact quote here. I'm paraphrasing. And he said something to the effect of, all men out there that are looking for an executive assistant, don't ever hire anybody attractive. Really? That's how you feel? Are you that weak, little man? This is a business owner. This is a person who employs females. The female population is about 50-50 with males. You just insulted an entire half of the United States and world population. Like, what in the hell are you thinking? Are you that weak? Are you that much into anti-women? Are you that much that you cannot trust yourself? To the extent that you want to hire, and I'm implying here, excuse me, I'm stating what he's implying. So you should hire an unattractive, ugly woman? Like, that's human resources 101. Don't ever do it. Don't even think it. But if you're thinking it, don't ever do it. What woman should ever work for you, dude? I hope you lose all of them. Because that's trash. That's straight up trash. You don't treat people like that. You don't talk about people like that. And so this happened after the fact. Had this happened during the fact or during the time, man, I would have been gone. This is who this man chooses to associate himself with. You are who you associate with. Danny Kanell, I got a lot of respect for Danny Kanell. I watch a lot of Danny Kanell stuff. I personally am shocked that Danny Kanell is on this show. Danny Kanell strikes me as a family man, as a good, honorable man, as a man of standard, as a man of values and principles across the board. Not when it's not conditional, when it's comfortable, or when it's appropriate based on a certain, I don't know, clickbait type of stuff. Pretty awful, awful stuff. And TJ Moe and Jason Whitlock, good for you guys. You guys can be together until your heart's content. I want no part of it. People I talked to don't want any part of it. And 95% of people out there don't want any part of it. You see, Jason, you've been around 30, 35 years. I think you have, 580,000 subscribers on YouTube? Not very good, bud. That should tell you something. And I won't divulge everything that we talked about, but certain things that we talked about behind the scenes really, as somebody who's taught a lot of people who's ran business, who's built business, ran business, advised on business, mentored for business, man, you got some issues, bro. You have some serious issues in the way that you process things, and you've done nothing but box and pigeonhole yourself to where you currently are and what you're experimenting doing. And I'll leave that at that. I'll respect our private conversation in that way, but I won't respect some of the other conversation that I'm going to share. All right, so guys, this is where it all started. For those of you who are not totally familiar, this is my first initial show, and it's the first initial time on his show, and his initial introduction of me. Here it goes. Take a listen.
Got his own little podcast. We have a special guest, a first-time visitor coming to Fearless, Paul Burkhart. He's got his own little podcast, and you likely never heard of him, but man, has he nailed the Shoutout Sanders deal from the giddy up. You know what? I'm going to break a little protocol here and play a clip just to warm you up. This is just a warm up before I'm going to get into the conversation, but I'm going to warm you up for Paul. Let's play SOT number 8. This is Paul before the NFL draft, when everybody was saying Shoutout Sanders was, maybe the number one pick in the draft and certainly a first-round pick. And he definitely, I'd bet my house he's a second-round pick. This is some guy named Paul Burkhart who we're going to get to the bottom of, like, who he is. Is he some sort of scout? Is he some sort of coach or whatever? But here he is telling everyone Shadour's going to be a fifth-round pick. Play the clip.
One more thing. I can't help but get this off my chest. And I've been doing this a lot on X. This is the opposite of Jaden Danielson. Shoutout Sanders is being touted as the number one draft pick for the Cleveland Browns and whoever else wants to take him. That would be the biggest mistake. That would be a bigger mistake than taking Caleb Williams. Shoutout Sanders should not be drafted in the NFL any earlier than, say, the 5th round. And if I'm Shoutout Sanders, I legitimately consider changing positions. Good, seems like a good kid, but I think he's a product of his father versus being anything remotely close to a starting caliber NFL quarterback product. I don't think that's that. I think this would be on the level of a Tim Couch debacle, and God knows the other 3 dozen quarterbacks or 4 dozen, 5 dozen quarterbacks that they've had in the last 20 years. It would be an epic, epic, epic mistake to take him number one.
Who is Paul Burkhart, and how did he nail the Shoutout Sanders deal? We'll get to the bottom of that. We'll talk about the latest.
So, Jason, who is Paul Burkhart? Paul Burkhart works to be a decent human being. Paul Burkhart works to help people. Paul Burkhart works to help change lives. You see, Jason, I've been responsible for people making careers, for people building families, for people building their first homes or purchasing their first homes by working for me. 2 years, 4 years, 6 years. I help people get from where they are to where they want to be. That's who Paul Burkhart is. What we just witnessed there, that's just me rapping about sports because I've got a long sports background, which I'll touch on in a moment. But Paul Burkhart is a decent human being that wishes to try to multiply people and not divide people. That's who I am. And I hope everybody out there knows that's who I am. You start looking at my material, you'll see that I critique people, but I don't attack people, their lives, their character, their family, and things like that. I don't do that. So that's who I am. That's who Paul Burkhart is. So let me take you to this right here. This was the end of things on November 19th. You guys should be able to see that. This was in regards to, and let me, before I get into that, because this is so crazy. And I was in the green room one time talking with another guy, and he says, Jason really thinks I'm this, but I really am that. And I have an 8-year coaching basketball coaching history with 7 championships. But I tried to tell Jason from day one that it's football around the clock that I'm really good at, not basketball. Basketball in terms of coaching, leading, all of that type of stuff. Man, I know history and stuff like that. But in terms of following the NBA every day, no. In terms of even following my hometown team, the Detroit Pistons, every day, no. So as it relates to his text here, this is a text on November 19th, 12:41, in my response. And this is how he talks to me. Like, how do you even meet somebody for 3 weeks and this is how you talk to somebody? So this had to do with Dennis Jenkins. How's that? I called him Denise Jenkins, or like Denise Jenkins is how I refer to him on the show. He says right there in the text, you undermined yourself. You're casting yourself as an ultimate Detroit Pistons fan. Never did. Never had a conversation with him on air or off of air that I ever was anything like that. Do you see anything behind me here? This is my main sign. And another prop area that I do, I have a Lions football, a Lions hat. I don't have anything Pistons related. I don't. Where he got this from, where he pulled this from, I have no idea. It maybe is his perception. It's what he hoped. I don't know. So the topic came up about the Pistons. Are they for real? I think it was the Spurs. Are they for real? You undermined yourself. You're casting yourself as the ultimate Detroit Pistons fan and expert, and you can't pronounce the name of one of their top players. Makes you look like a blowhard and a fraudulent blowhard. Who said Dennis Jenkins? See, I'm still doing it, and that's what we do. That's what people do. We make mistakes, and we don't always get names right. The Tim Brandles of the world, the people who prepare to say names on the air, it happens all the time. I should have did a better job, yes. But I had never heard of the guy until like 6 days prior. And no, he isn't one of their best players. This right here, these statistics, 7.6, 1.8, 3.3, 43.1, I think that was this morning. Yeah, I pulled that this morning. That's his stats as of this morning. During the time we talked on air, he was in a flash of about a week because he got some time, because basically the whole starting 5 was out. I had no idea who Dennis Jenkins was. Zero idea. I think he was undrafted. I know that. He came in and he did some things in a moment, but he isn't one of their best players. He isn't a great player. I mean, that says it all right there. So who's really the one who doesn't know? Paul, your brand is not strong enough to make constant mistakes. It can't happen. Okay, let's talk about what those mistakes supposedly are. I made a comment when we talked about ESPN and how they were blowing things up with the NFL and the whole YouTube deal. I said Disney was struggling as a company, and it had been going on for quite some time. And I'll show you the proof of that. On air, I talked about Deion's if Deion was either fired or opted out. I talked about his buyout money versus his opt-out money. And I said it. I was reading it online. I said, this is if he leaves, not if they fire him. So it's wording, and I'll get to John's comments in a moment. And I really want to talk about John and Luke here, because I don't want this in any way to represent them and who they are, because I got a lot of great things to say about them. You see, Jason, it's nice to say nice things about people. You should try that once in a while. So the Disney comment pertaining to ESPN and ABC, while on a show, one of the shows that I was on, we're live, and I get a text that says, we're basically going to be pivoting to Cooper Flagg. In the context of the conversation, prior to any potential pivot to or about Cooper Flagg, what we were talking about or who we were talking about at the time, I thought it was kind of relative. I don't know if it was Concanupo. I don't know exactly what we were talking about, but I said, I think we're going to be talking about Cooper Flagg here in a little bit. And I would really attribute it to be whatever I said. He stopped dead in his tracks and insulted me right on air. And you know what he said? He said, you talk, I'll direct. Then he quickly capitulates, but he adjusts and says, and I mean that in, let's see here. Let me get his exact comment. I mean that affectionately. So when you talk bad about somebody, when you knock somebody, you then say, but I mean that affectionately. That is, I'm in charge. You're not. Sit down, little boy. But I mean that affectionately. It's textbook. See, Jason, I've studied human behavior for the last 30 years. When you are an entrepreneur, when you hire people, when you need to understand everybody's why, when you coach and you need to learn how to talk to everybody differently, you need to understand how they think. You need to understand where they came from, how they arrived at that position, their communication style, how they receive information. Are they auditory? Are they visual? Are they auditory? Are they kinesthetic? How do they learn? Okay, so I understand all this stuff and I know exactly what you're doing. And I think there's a lot of people out there that understand what I understand and know exactly what you were doing. You were in your domain and you were controlling when I wasn't trying to control this show at all. It came on my phone. Hey, Paul, this is from John. John Hanley. I'll talk about him in a moment. He texted me and said, we're going to pivot to Cooper Flag, just FYI. That's all I did. Dennis Jenkins, who I just mentioned, and I accidentally said Mark Trestman. This is early on. I accidentally said Mark Trestman instead of Bill Musgrave as it relates to Shedeur Sanders. All right, so let me tell you somebody in this process who I really do respect, because I have little to no respect for Jason. I respect Jason for what he did as a writer, but I don't respect for how he conducts himself daily, how he treated me, and the questions he asked me, which if you're a business owner or you've ever employed or managed people, ever been in an HR office, or ever had to hire anybody and follow HR rules, I'll show you exactly how you don't do it in just a moment. So let me give the Walt Disney comment here. So John Hanley called me on November 8th, 2025. Who's John Hanley? My understanding is John Hanley's been in the industry about 25, 30 years as a consultant in production of major shows. Apparently, he's dealt with all the who's of the world, the Mike Tiricos, the Jim Nances, the Tim Brandos, Aaron Andrews, Carissa Thompson. This came from him. This is him verbatim telling me of all the people that he dealt with and that he spent his whole career. And I think I know why he said that, and I'll share that in a moment. But my comments about Walt Disney, they're not wrong. They're real. Now that changes daily, and some people can make money in the market with Disney stock, daily or weekly, even monthly. But this is polled as of this morning, and it was about the same when this conversation took place on November 8th. What is that? Basically two months and a little bit ago. They're down 34% in the last 5 years because they keep on doing boneheaded stuff. And they're burying the ESPN brand, the ABC brand. They keep getting in their own way. And I simply highlighted that because I'm brought on to give my opinion, right? I gave my opinion that ruffled some feathers. It wasn't liked, and I got a phone call. And I stated that they were failing on a lot of levels, meaning Disney was failing on a lot of different levels. So John called me, and we addressed a couple of things. That was one of them. Hey, I got some calls. People in Disney stock, they're not losing money. Yeah, they are losing money. It shows it right here, John. Love you, bro, but it's true. And maybe in the last quarter, people did okay, or in the past 2 quarters, they did okay. But over the past 5 years, 10 years, it is a sinking ship. And for somebody who's been around as long as they are, 100 years, they're in trouble. But versus the modern era of the way things are done. So that's all I was trying to say. So here's what John Hanley, an expert in the industry, says to me, because none of this makes any sense. And this, when I say it doesn't make sense, it just tells it paints a picture of what's probably really going on over there. This is what John Hanley says to me on the phone prior to him addressing the Walt Disney comments. There it says right there, worked with Nance, Tirico, Buck, Brando, a who's list. Verbatim, this is what John Hanley says to me. You make us a lot better. The way you speak with conviction is great. How you put everything together is incredible. In other words, how you articulate, how you take information, how you compile all of that, and then how you let it come out. He was commenting on that. This one really struck me. It's actually giving me chills right now. And I told him on the phone, wow, I mean, I'm so thankful you said that. He said, you have serious game. And then he didn't only say that, he followed up by saying, You actually have more game than you even know. And I was like, you hear that from somebody who's a veteran. I think he's 60. I think he told me 62, 63. Don't quote me. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Been doing it a long time. You hear that from an industry professional. It's like, I'm cutting my teeth a little bit in this particular area of speaking, though I've spoke in front of huge groups my whole life. In this particular, for this particular audience, in this particular realm, here I'm hearing somebody like that say, you got serious game. And you're more than what you think. I'm thinking, all right, so maybe I'm doing some of the right things. And then, he's giving constructive criticism, which I'm all about. He said, it's just a wording thing. Got to be careful with some of the wording things. You make some of those mistakes that can't happen. So it goes to the one that I said before, Mark Trestman or Bill Musgrave. Obviously can't make those mistakes. The Disney wasn't a mistake. I'll argue that. I'll die on that hill. It wasn't a mistake. I don't think of things in the context of small picture or one day or even 1 week. I'm a big picture guy. And you look at the big picture of Disney, they're not really doing well. That's not like a surprise. So that's what John said to me. And that was on, November 8th. So that's 11 days before, the shit hit the fan, basically. So let me tell you a little bit something about how I was in a dark tunnel with no light, and I had to try to figure things out on my own. And here's what I mean by that. So, and I get this because I've run business. I understand. I understand what it is like to even run a show like this. The amount of time that I put into this is crazy. Literally, it's crazy. I probably spent too much time. But since this is going to be a teaching tool, I figured it was worth the time. And hopefully I can help somebody. This isn't so much to knock him. It's to tell the truth. I'm going to hit him a little bit because you just don't talk to people like that. You poke a bear, you insult me, and I'm going to get to some of the things that he asks me. It's like, you don't ask people these questions and then hide behind biblical principles. Go insult people and then say, it's Christian biblical principles. Listen, newsflash, as somebody who grew up from kindergarten to 8th grade in a Catholic school, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand this. TJ Moe, much the same. All these guys that preach all these Christian beliefs, don't go insult people. Don't go insult entire classes of people and then decide to go hide behind some veil of biblical principles. It's a double standard and you sound foolish. And the experts in the field would tell you as such. It isn't consistent with what biblical principles are. Biblical principles actually suggest that you shouldn't even judge anybody, that it's not good. And then you judge people to the extent that they shouldn't have certain types of jobs because of the way they look. Really? Who's really the profiler here? Jason? TJ Schmo? Wow. It's stunning. And this dude is a franchise holder for a major franchise chain. You have got to be kidding me. These people think they're in some untouchable world. I'm telling you, as a business owner, you cannot conduct yourself this way. And I would imagine TJ Moe and Danny Kanell and Steve Kim and Scap and whoever else, I would imagine these people are independent contractors. If they're getting paid, they're not employees. So that leads me to tell you a little bit about me. I didn't make a penny. My hunch, no one told me this. My hunch, I don't know how it works, to be honest with you. And then I didn't even research it. I have a lot of stuff going on. My guess is Jason figured he was doing me a favor. And he figured if he brought me on the show, that would increase my profile, increase my brand, increase my followers. And this is kind of common knowledge. If you increase your followers, if you increase the people paying attention to you, you have an opportunity to monetize that. I think that's what he was thinking. Okay. But there's a time where that goes too far. Number one, I was new at this. I don't make my living doing this. I'm trying to get it to that point, but this doesn't pay the bills. I make $0 right now in terms of this podcast setup. There are some other areas that I do, but in terms of this podcast setup, no, I don't. So I'm guessing each day. How does this actually work? Am I on the show? Am I not on the show? I would get texts after being on a show from John or even of Luke. Oh my God, you hit it out of the park. Amazing job. Whoa, and I'm like, all right, cool. Again, going back to This is really working. And let me just stop there again. So let me just highlight these two guys because they were really good to me. And I don't want to paint this whole thing with just one big paintbrush. John and Luke make this show go. Jason does not make this show go. Don't ever fool yourself. As someone who's owned business and has put people all around me, 23, 24 people were employed at one time for me doing all sorts of different things. And they make me look good. I don't make them look good. You see, that's how you lead. You don't act like you're the show. You kind of, you go to the foreground when you need to, or the forefront when you need to, but you kind of stay in the background. You highlight your people. That's how you lead, Jason. Take a lesson, buddy. It's textbook. The people that make that show go are Luke, and I don't know everybody, but the ones who make that show go are John and Luke. My guess, this is a hunch, you're lost without one or both of them. Lost. Far as I understand, the way I understand it, John is a production consultant and Luke is the director of the show each day. It's a lot of freaking work. And it's not to say that Jason doesn't do some work. He comes up with the topics. He passes it along. They put it together. One reaches out to the guests, makes that all happen. The other one goes ahead and makes the context of the show, which is what you see here. All these graphics, have everything work, sound, lighting. Anybody who's ever done this on any level understands it's freaking hard. It's not easy. And there's technical difficulties always. We sure had plenty of those. I had plenty of those. They had some. It's hard to get it all together. It's great conceptually. It's great. The idea is there. And then to get it to execution, just like in any business, really hard to do. So John and Luke, props to you guys. I thank you guys. And I when I talk like this, I even start to get a little bit emotional. You guys made an impact on my life. I appreciate you. Luke would say to me, man, I'm not used to guests working this way. They contact me, I answer. They ask me for something, I give it to them. They ask me to be on time, I'm early. All of those things, that's the way that I operate. It's the way I ran business. It's the way I ran my teams. And I was being given an opportunity. And I thank Jason for that. I do thank Jason for that initial opportunity, for recognizing me and for giving me that opportunity. I do. But I don't thank him for denigrating me and treating me like a piece of shit. And then asking me some of the questions that he asked me, which I think are pretty inappropriate, to be honest with you. And then he's trashing people like Patrick Bet-David, who's actually one of my distance mentors, who I've studied greatly and has helped me immensely in my life. You see, anybody that it seems like that comes around this dude that is successful, he wants to knock them down. And the textbooks basically say, usually when you do that, you want something that they have. Now, Jason will tell you that he had money on the table from Fox or ESPN or one of them, and he turned it down. And this and that. Probably did here and there. But the real truth of the matter is, I don't know that he's a high achiever that way. Back in the old days, you sit in a cubicle, you sit behind a screen, you sit with a pad and a paper, and you write things down, and you make a story. That's what Jason was really good at. But beyond that, I think Jason hit a wall, and I think he's hitting a wall right now. His content is not growing. His platform is not growing. Jason, I'll only refer to our conversation in this way. I'll keep the rest private. Your base is not growing because of anyone you're associated with. It's not growing because of you. You're unlikable. And when you treat people like shit, they go the other way. There's a time in my life where I did that, and I had to learn the hard way. I've had everything, I've had nothing, and I've had everywhere in between. One thing I learned along the way, and it will stand the test of time forever: treat others as you expect to be treated. Do to others as you wish done to yourself. And as the famous and great Zig Ziglar used to always say, help enough others get what they want, and ultimately you'll be fulfilled beyond your wildest dreams. That's the difference between you, my friend, or my old friend, and me. Moving on. So when I asked Jason, hopefully I have this up here. It doesn't matter. I'll recite it. When I asked Jason for, or I inquired for potential full-time, hey, you know what? I wonder if there's a way where I can continue to do my show and bring value to you. And he said, hey, if you can discuss the race topic, if you can discuss maybe, I think he said maybe a little bit of politics, that's a plus. That's a huge plus. And I think he understood early on. He told me as much. He thought that his team thought, or his team thought that I might be comfortable talking about race. And he, I think, quickly realized that I didn't. I could talk about it a little bit, but it's not my space. It's not my place. And I'm going to recognize that. And I'm going to say that as such. But in my conversations early on, when things were going good and him and I were talking fairly frequently, I say fairly frequently, we were on a phone call that day for about a half an hour over this conversation. And I inquired about potentially getting on full time. Here's the series of questions that he asked me. Actually, let me just see if I have this right here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, let me see if I could bring this up on the screen. Bear with me one moment, and I will be able to do that. I'm pretty confident I could do that. Oh boy. I hope everybody is finding this a little bit enlightening. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you do. But I hope that this makes a difference at some point in your life. I'm not trying to ruin a show or anything. Like, I don't get off on that type of stuff. Is more informative than anything. Okay, here we go. All right. So after this is like strange behavior on the phone, and the guy doesn't say hello or goodbye. He says, "Yup. Thanks, Jason, for the time. Have a great day." Yup. Hey, Jay. Hello. When somebody would say hello, yeah. It's like, what? So that struck me as odd. So we get to talking about some things, and he asks me, "Where do you live?" Common question. I lived in Detroit 19 years, the rest of the time up to 53 in a suburb of Detroit, north of 8 Mile. And about a year ago, last February, I relocated to Florida full time. Are you married? It's kind of getting a little bit odd, but okay. Does your wife work? Are you a Christian? Bro. I shouldn't call you bro. Jason. You don't ask people that. All right. Maybe I was going to be an independent contractor. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe that was going through your mind. Maybe it wasn't. Don't ask people if they're a Christian. That's a line you don't cross. What does my wife working have to do anything? You want to understand if I believe in feminism or if I'm a feminist? Is that what you're doing? No, my wife didn't used to work. And when things got hard, now she is back at it. Now it was off for 5 years. No work for 5 years. Stuff happens in life. We made an adjustment. That's not even for public information, but it's fine. But you don't ask somebody, and maybe a potential employee or even a contractor. It's HR 101. You don't ask the question. I don't know what you think you're running over there or what maybe has worked for you in the past, but that's just something you don't do. So there's just so many odd things about this entire process that are just alarming. And as we went through the process, and I never saw one of Jason's shows until the show that I was actually on. I was asked to be in the green room and watch the entire first segment. I was on a portion and I watched. That's the first show I ever watched. And I believe he's been doing it for 5 years. That graphic right there, I think, says it all. And this was really alarming to me. I don't care for Stephen A. Smith. I don't care for Deion Sanders. I don't like either one of their shticks, like the way that they conduct themselves, not because of the color of their skin, not because of the level of their intellect, none of that. I don't care for their content and the way they process. Jason thinks he's the smartest, most intellectual man in the room. And we're talking about titans. We're talking about guys that will be remembered forever as Deion being one of the greatest cornerbacks ever, Stephen A. Smith being one of the at least well-known, you can argue greatest or not greatest, but one of the most well-known dynamic personalities in TV history. Again, I don't like him. I don't like listening to him. I don't listen to him. I don't watch him. I don't think Deion Sanders is a football coach. I think he's a whole bunch of things, like a brand builder and an attention getter and a like a NIL or a portal recruiter type of guy. That's what I see. And I see that little big guy in the middle that thinks he's smarter and superior and hates the fact that he doesn't get the attention that those two guys get or everything that's come with it. That's a hunch. He says he turned a bunch of money away. He says he had the opportunity. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Bottom line is he doesn't. They do. And I think it bothers the shit out of them. And again, when you go through your life, again, I don't mean to be like preachy here, but when you go through your life and you don't like somebody for what they have or what they don't have, that's indicative of who you are. That's indicative of the problems that you have internally. That's not a Stephen A. Smith problem. That's not a Deion Sanders problem. That's a Jason problem. And to constantly knock other people, let's see, Stephen A. Smith, he's a fraud. He's I don't even know all the names because he's got a whole bunch of them. He's a liar, he's a fraud, he's a fake, he's lying about his basketball career, all this type of stuff. Whatever, dude. Knocking people every single day is not the answer. Provide content. This is just a tip. I mean, take it for what it's worth. You want to throw it out the door, throw it out the door. Maybe provide some content that might help somebody. Yeah, we're in a pop culture, race, DEI, all this. I know what your angle is. I know what your pathway is. But when you wonder why things have happened the way that they have happened, and you're almost a shut-in in your own home, maybe you prefer that, hosting your show and having your director, the director of your show in your home. Maybe that's the way you like it. But don't knock other people for what they do and how they do it per se, because it really is indicative of the underlying reasons of you. Now, you've been on air and you've said, hey, I did this wrong in my life. I did that wrong in my life. And credit to you for that. You admitted it. I've done the same things. Made a ton of mistakes in my life. I still make a ton of mistakes in my life. I said Mark Trestman instead of Bill Musgrave. I said Denise Jenkins instead of Dennis Jenkins. Yeah, that's life. Here's what I would tell you, and this goes to you had a chance to mentor me, and instead you chose to mimic and mock me. You got a little bit of Baltimore Ravens in you. And I'm going to toot my horn here for a little bit because I know who I am, and a lot of people know who I am. And my content already in such a small period of time, and the way that I create graphics and the following that I get and the people who flock to me from your show, maybe you didn't think I provided anything, but they sure did. They're still contacting me. So I must have done something in that short a period of time. I must have done something that resonated. I think you kind of had your Ravens moment. See, Jason, I wanted to get your attention. I maybe wanted to be on your show. I don't need you. You need people like me to help you. I don't need you. If I want 1 million followers, believe me when I tell you I could get to 1 million followers in a relatively short period of time, some paid and some unpaid. You know how I know that? Because I built $1 million companies with no money, no credit, no car, no nothing. Boost Mobile. Way back in the day, I had Boost Mobile with no internet, and I built $1 million company. So wanting something and needing something are two totally different things. You kind of had Mike McDonald in your building, me, and you let me go. Again, I would have left. I would have pardoned. I would have excused myself because I just can't sign up for that type of stuff. I don't agree with the way that you treat people. To me, that's a road to no end. That's a road to the Titanic hitting a glacier and then sinking. And I don't want to be on that ship. I want to uplift as much as I can. I don't want to denigrate as much as I can. As two totally different people we are. Two totally. You had a chance to mentor me, man. You had a chance to impart wisdom on me. You chose not to. You chose to embarrass me on screen. You chose, or on live and off live. initially I was struck by it. I was hurt by it just because I don't think I've ever been called a fraud in my life or appear fraudulent. I patterned myself the opposite. I didn't win all those championships and build all those teams and build all those companies and hire all those people and help in some way. There's one or two instances where I was told that I saved their life by ways that I mentored them. That's what I want my legacy to be. That's how I want to be remembered. I don't want to be remembered like TJ Moe and say, hey guys, don't ever reveal yourself to temptation by hiring an attractive woman as an executive assistant. Wow. How can you possibly get further in life by knocking everybody down? I mean, I guess you can. Some people do it. But I guess, how do you sleep at night? For me, I want to lay on the pillow at night. I want to know that I made a difference, or at least I damn sure tried to make a difference. And if I keep doing it, then I'm going to hopefully make a difference. And maybe somebody will remember that and it will help somebody. And then maybe they help somebody. And you see where we got away from that in life with this whole social media and podcasting and stuff. That's where our world changed, is when people chose your path versus the path that I'm talking about. And I wasn't always on this path. Like, I didn't always do the right thing or have the right, I wouldn't say the wrong intentions, but I guess I didn't have the right wisdom and the correct level of, I guess, understanding on how to do it and the way in which to go about it. I'm about to be 54. I think you're 58. I'm a little bit behind you, but I'm relatively close. I hope you get it, man. This is my way of helping you. Maybe one day we'll make amends. Maybe one day we'll have a conversation. Maybe one day you'll say you're sorry and I'll say I'm sorry. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Again, I don't need you. I don't even want you in my life. So you feel like you're high on the hog because you made those comments? Bro, buddy, it doesn't impact me. It made you feel good. It hurt me for a moment, but I moved on. And I'm not having this conversation for clicks. I'm not having this conversation for followers. I'm having this conversation to inform people who have inquired by the hundreds, multiple hundred, and still are over 2 months, and follow me on my show and are wondering. And then the second part, use it as a teaching tool. This material will be seen probably by millions of people through all the different platforms over time. Platforms growing. I literally put in about 10 hours a week at this right now. If I found a way to fix my situation and put 50, 60, 70 hours in this, I will outwork you 27 ways to Sunday. And I'll do it in a fraction of the time that you did. That's my history. That's what I've done. It's what I do. So be careful who you knock next time. Be careful who you dismiss the next time. Be careful who you insult the next time. And maybe, just maybe, if it's not going exactly smooth and our time didn't go smooth together, maybe look to help that person. Maybe look to get them a little bit more comfortable. Pretty amazing. I was super comfortable with Luke. I was super comfortable with John. I wasn't comfortable with you. Wonder why that is. You might want to ask yourself that. And I've talked to a lot of people. I hear that seems to be a common thread. So maybe this is a teaching or learning moment for you. And that, who is Paul Burkhart? That's who I am. A decent person trying to be better than yesterday and not as good as tomorrow. I think I've covered it all. This has been a heck of an experience. It's been a life experience. Again, I'm thankful, Jason, that you gave me the opportunity to be on the show. I'm also thankful that things ended. Because if you didn't end it, I would have ended it. I cannot live with myself behaving that kind of way, treating people that kind of way. Makes me sick to my stomach. It even affected my wife, if I'm being honest. And you have a profound impact on people in ways greater than maybe you think or maybe you know. Tending to be hurtful and tending to be harmful to people, it can have that effect. But I was in a coma in 2016. I'm not even supposed to be alive. I lost my father at 17 years old, devastated with the disease of cancer. He was 45. His funeral was over a mile long. I've been places you can't fathom. So there's nothing you can do to me that will break me. Anything you've done with or to me, so to say, has made me stronger. You like to break people. You won't break me. And I kind of caught wind that maybe something was said. I don't care. It doesn't matter. People know who I am and people know who you are. And the ones who don't, they can decide for themselves. When they look at your material and they look at my material, very, very easy to decipher the difference between you and me. Luke and John, you guys are awesome. I wish you nothing but the best. At least that's my experience. With me, you guys were the best. If I had to guess, you guys probably walk around on some eggshells. I hope it's okay for you guys. And maybe Jason means something to you on some sort of level, but take this for whatever it's worth. He is a reflection on you guys. A guy that gets out and spouts off terrible stuff every single day. Oh, one more thing about Patrick Bet-David. Let me close with that. I'll take about 4 more minutes here and make it an hour even. Patrick Bet-David came up in the conversation. Again, distance mentor of mine, and I'll get back to Luke and John in a moment. Distance mentor of mine, read his every book, followed all his material, and for the past 5 years of my life has been wildly instrumental in me getting to the next level of leadership, of depth of understanding and knowledge and wisdom on how to lead, how to grow, everything. Patrick's, calling card is in the insurance business. And he built what's called a direct sales organization. Jason, you were a writer. You should know this stuff. Jason doesn't like Patrick Bet-David because Patrick Bet-David set up and Jason flew down to Florida to go on the PBD podcast. This is what I'm told. This is what Jason told me. Go down and then he said it on his podcast. So this is public information. Flew him down to be on his show. And when he got there, this Roland Davis, I don't even know who this guy is. I only know of what he said. I've never seen him. I don't know him. I never watched any of his material. I have no idea. I just know they have some sort of beef together. And apparently PBD tried to entrap him and try to get him on the show together. And apparently picked him up at the airport and took him all around and took the long way so Roland Martin could get there. And then Jason didn't like that, and he flew back to Tennessee. If Patrick Bet-David did that, that's a pretty shitty thing to do. That's wrong. But he's a pyramid scheme, and he's a scam, and all this type of stuff, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Listen, man, it's not a pyramid scheme. Everything the dude was doing is monitored by the SEC. And he sold the company. And when you sell the company, you don't sell a company that has to go through all the regulation. It doesn't sell. It can't even be brought to sale if it's illegal or if it's a, quote, Ponzi scheme. See, Patrick is a very brilliant mind. Patrick understands how to run business, and he understands how to teach other people to do it. You might not like his style, but don't call the dude a scam. See, that's what I'm trying to say. It's a pyramid scheme because you don't like the guy. That's what you say. That's what you do to people. When you either don't measure up in your own mind or you feel somebody did you the wrong way, scorched earth. Jason Scorched Earth Whitlock. It's not the answer, man. Chalk it up. Say your piece. Move on. Didn't work out. Somebody told me, somebody that found me on your show a couple of weeks ago, he saw a post of mine that this was potentially coming. Hey, if Jason didn't want you on the show, then prove him wrong. I got nothing to prove to you, dude. Nothing. It's not my existence. It's not why I'm on this earth to prove anything to you. In the context of, hey, maybe getting on your show and then holding my end of the bargain, that was important to me. But I'm not looking to prove it to you. What I'm looking to do is do what I do, whatever it is I do, hopefully do it really well. And the merits of what I do will speak, on its own. I'm not in the proving business. My work will prove itself. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, the rest will take care of it. I don't need to prove to somebody. I don't need to knock somebody. I'm 54 years old, almost. So Luke and John, the way this guy goes about things, man, if it has affected, Luke, you're a young guy. You got a bright future ahead. John, you got a bright future too, but there's an age difference there. And be careful. That's all I will say to you. So again, hopefully this made some sort of difference to somebody. That's the real story. That's the truth. He will likely respond in some kind of way, but as I went Eminem style, and I told the truth, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell the truth. I told the truth. I did make mistakes. I let the show down in some ways. Yes, I was embarrassed by that. I felt bad by that. When you pile on somebody, dude, you got no clue how to live life. But that's your life to live. It's not mine. And I'm so glad that I'm gone. And somebody will want me on their show, most likely, now or in the future, for my own merit, and maybe this. And maybe then you can learn something on how to treat people. So everybody, thanks for watching. Hopefully maybe this made a difference in your life. I hope it did. This will be cut up into clips, and it'll be shared everywhere all the time for a very long time. And this was different for me. Very, very different to go in this format and do this type of stuff. I don't do this type of stuff, I should say. And to do this is very different for me. I usually handle things behind closed doors. But being that this was a very public show and I was, treated like a child on air and off air, I felt it was necessary. So everybody have a great day. Scan that QR code upper right-hand corner, takes you to our YouTube page. Smash that subscribe button. You'll see a lot of material I have. Typically, it's not material like this. A lot of informative stuff. Hopefully you follow. On X at PB Sports Talks with an S on the end. Follow there. Everything generally goes to X first, YouTube second. The during the day tweets and comments, in-game live tweeting, my picks, a lot of different mentoring stuff coming soon. There's some stuff in the works. Generally, that information goes there first and YouTube second, but I appreciate it if you follow both. I say this at the end of my show every single week, and in most streams that I do or recordings that I do. Hug someone, hold someone, love someone. Life is short. Thanks for joining, everybody. Take care now. Bye-bye.